Over to you, Chair.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the licensing virtual meeting this morning. We'll start with a round of introductions. My name's Councillor Amanda Pinnock. I'm the Chair. Councillor Davis, would you like to go next?
Yeah, good morning, everybody. I'm Councillor Paola Davis. I'm in Almonbury Ward, and I'm one of the panel members today.
Good morning. I'm Councillor Terry Lyons, representative for Home Valley North. Thank you.
Thank you. Council's legal representative.
Yes, my name's Helen Wilson. I'm a solicitor. I'll be advising the panel this morning.
Licensing officers.
I'm Jordan Barrett. I'm a licensing officer.
Good morning, Laura Dobson, Senior Licensing Officer.
Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Beth Jennings. I'm also a Senior Licensing Officer. Sorry, Councillor.
Thank you. The applicant.
Yes, good morning. I'm Tony Dales. I'm the licensing consultant representing Mr. Orty this morning.
Mr. Orty, are you with us?
Good morning, everybody. My name's Carl Orty, and I'm the applicant themselves.
Thank you. And then we have an objector. Is it Miss Margetts?
Hi, you can call me Jean Margetts. I'm a trustee of the watershed.
Thank you. So just to confirm to everyone here, this meeting is being webcast and recorded. What we'll do is we will go through the agenda item in the pack that's been sent out to everyone. So we'll start with minutes of the previous meeting. Myself and the two councillors here, they were present at that meeting, which was on the 19th of November. Are you happy to say this is a correct record of that meeting?
Agreed.
Councillor Davies?
Yep, I'm agreed. In agreement.
Thank you.
Councillor Pinnock, can you just lower your mouthpiece, please? Struggling to hear. Thank you.
Sorry, I apologise. I'll start again. So we'll start by going through the agenda items. So minutes of the previous meeting, which was held on the 19th of November. I was present and my two colleagues were also present at that meeting. Are you both happy to approve those minutes? Councillor Davies?
Yep, I agree with them.
Councillor Lyons?
Agreed. Thank you.
Thank you. We have admissions of the public. This is a virtual meeting. Deputations and petitions.
Just interest to declare, Councillor Pinnock. Did members confirm whether they had any interests or not?
Councillor Davis, any interests to declare?
No interest. No interest to declare on this.
Councillor Lyons.
None.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any deputations or petitions to mention?
None received. No.
Okay. Have we had any questions from members of the public?
No, we've not received any questions.
Lovely. Okay, so we'll launch straight into the first application, and it's an application for grant of premises licence under Licensing Act 2003 in relation to Northern Soul, 39 Bridge Street, Slathwaite, Huddersfield. Can I begin by asking the licensing officer, please, to outline the application?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. On the 25th of September 2020, the Licensing Department received an application for the grant of a premise licence for Northern Soul Limited. The application was made on behalf of the company by Mr. Carl Orty. A copy of this application may be seen at Appendix A. The licensable activities applied for the applicant are as follows: a supply of alcohol for consumption on and off the premise, 7 days a week from 8 AM to 11 PM. In total, 8 representations from residents have been received relating to this application. The representations consider that the following licensing objectives would not be met if this licence is granted. So that's on public nuisance and prevention of crime and disorder. So a copy of the representations may be seen at Appendix B. The application has been circulated to all 8 other responsible bodies: Kirklees Safeguarding, Environmental Health, West Yorkshire Fire, Immigration, Kirklees Primary Care Trust, Kirklees Planning, West Yorkshire Police, Weights and Measures, to which only one, which was West Yorkshire Fire, have responded with no objections. The application was also sent to ward councillors, Councillor Donna Bellamy, Councillor Rob Walker and Councillor Leslie Warner on the 28th of September 2020, which received no objections to this application. And the previous hearing was on the 19th of November, but was adjourned due to councillors wanting to undertake a site visit, which was conducted on the 30th of November. Thank you.
Thank you. I only have one question, although you've sort of alluded to it. Any comments from the police or environmental health? I just want clarity about that.
No, none.
Okay, thank you. Do any of my colleagues have any questions? Councillor Davies?
I have no further questions to ask. I think Jordan covered them already so far.
Thank you. Councillor Lyons?
Just for clarification, we were told by the legal officer they don't need a license in effect. It's just an alcohol license. So all we really will be discussing will be the alcohol license.
Thank you. Does the applicant or applicant's representative have any questions for the licensing officer?
No, not at this stage at all. Thank you.
Thank you. And sorry, I didn't let you finish there, Mr. Dales. Thank you. Jean, do you have any questions of the licensing officer at this stage?
No.
Okay, thank you. Right, we'll move on to the applicant, please. Could the applicant's representative, Mr. Dales, can you outline the application, please?
Yes, thank you very much. Good morning. I'm here today to represent Mr. Carl Orty, who has applied for a premises licence for the Northern Soul Cafe and Bistro. Mr. Orty, as you're aware, is present today, and he would like to address the committee and answer any questions you may have. In preparation for the hearing, Mr. Orty submitted a statement which is indexed at TWD2 in your papers. I believe that you've got that in there, and that has been read prior to this actual meeting. The purpose of my representing Mr. Orty today is threefold. Firstly, to clarify exactly what Mr. Orty is intending for the Northern Soul premises, to dispel any concerns that you, the committee, and any residents present may have, to outline how, if the licence is granted, all four licensing objectives, and in particular the areas of public nuisance and crime and disorder highlighted in the public representations, will be supported. I'd like to start by saying that we totally understand the concern of residents when such applications are submitted. Sometimes misinformation, assumptions, and sometimes a lack of clarity can highlight such concerns. We are aware that sometime last year, a planning application to change the use of the premises to a bar was discontinued following significant representations from the public. Mr. Orty is aware that residents feel his application is in some way connected to the failed planning application. I'd say from the outset, this is not the case. So I'd like to clear up one issue and concern from the start. Mr. Orty is not wishing to open a bar where standing customers are drinking alcohol as their main purpose for being there. He wishes to open a family-run, small, high-quality, family-orientated cafe bistro where food is the main offer and alcohol is ancillary to this. I believe this is an area that is crucial to the understanding of what this application is about. Mr. Orty, to his credit, has invested a large amount of time, money and passion into this project to restore the old Lock 22 cafe, which has laid fallow for the past 12 months, into a quality premises that will enhance the areas of Slough. I would refer you to the menu proposed for the premises shown in the documentation at TWD3. You will see that the menu is comprehensive. The menu has been created by Mr. Orty to offer something of quality, where the serving of alcohol, which will be bottled beers, wines and spirits, as ancillary to the food offered. Once again, an important area in our submission today. With regard to the premises themselves, the planned drawings submitted as part of the application and are exhibited as on page 37 of your papers clearly shows this is a small operation with an estimated capacity of 60 customers. This includes both inside and outdoor areas. The outdoor area will principally operate during the more forgiving climate of spring and summer, when the weather allows. This outside area will be clearly defined for eating purposes, and customers requiring meals will be given priority. To provide the committee with an actual view of the outside eating area, I would refer to the aerial photographs provided in one of the public representations. They're at pages 39 and 40 of your bundle. This clearly shows the small area and does refute the comments from one of the public representations that hundreds of locals and visitors will be visiting and drinking at the premises as part of the infamous ale trail that is associated with this area. In relation to the actual ethos of Northern Soul, I will leave this for Mr. Orty to explain. The application has received a total of 8 public representations shown on pages 11 to 35. As you will now be aware, these in the main cited noise pollution, drunkenness, antisocial behaviour and litter as the main concerns. In addition, there was a concern expressed with the times that alcohol is to be made available, i.e. 8 o'clock in the morning to 11 o'clock at night. As I've already stated, we'll be showing how we intend to support these licensing objectives that have been covered in the residents' concerns. I believe we only have one person who has been prepared or able to attend the hearing today. I believe at the last hearing there was 2 objectors, but since that time I'm aware that the gentleman has spoken to Mr. Orty about the premises and now is happy with the application. I think it's also important to acknowledge 3 local councillors were consulted about Northern Soul, one of which lives on Bridge Street. None of these councillors expressed any concern. If they had, I'm sure they would have been here today. I would now like to refer to the premises licence application submitted by Mr. Orty, pages 11 to 35 in your papers, and in particular, sections relating to the operating schedule, page 14, and licensing objectives, pages 27 to 28. I'm not going to read them out in full and take up unnecessary time, but I will attempt to summarise the key areas contained in this application, and in particular on the licensing objective, those relating to public nuisance and crime and disorder. You will see, I hope that this shows a strong commitment from Mr. Orty to comply with the application, with the objectives, my apologies. So if we look at page 14, which is an area that says operating schedule, you will see from the application of the words there, a delightfully situated and popular cafe serving principally food with hot, cold and alcoholic drinks. Approximately 30 covers on a single split level floor with entrance and exit to the front canal path and back Bridge Street. There is also 30 covers for outside. This clearly shows the scale of what is going to be put on offer. And as we say, this is going to be a serving cafe with alcohol. Lot 22 limited prior to this was unlicensed. So initially on that page 14, it just gives you an idea of the operating schedule Mr. Orty is trying to achieve. I'd then like to just quickly go on to the licensing objectives. Once again, very clearly set out by Mr. Orty. It's going to be training all his staff in relation to the 4 licensing objectives, and is also offering to meet with local residents on a regular basis to discuss and continue to review the promotion of these 4 licensing objectives. With regard to crime and disorder, he's going to have a full CCTV system set in the premises, inside and out, regular glass collections, patio furnished secured to the floor. He's going to provide a taxi booking service for anybody who requires it. Very, very important on number 5, no customers will be permitted to leave with open bottles or glasses. Any person who refuses to leave the area or is identified as causing any antisocial behaviour will be subject to a ban from the premises. And as you can see there, that will be recorded. Consumption of alcohol. very important, will be restricted to the outside patio and inside ground floor. And he wishes to participate in any local pub watch or night safe schemes that are in place in the area. That covers the area of crime and disorder. In relation to public nuisance, I think this one is a real important one. There's going to be signage in place asking people to leave quietly. One of the offers from Mr. Orty is that the exit and entrance to the residential rear of the building, Bridge Street entrance, will not be in use from 2200 hours at the latest. After this time, patrons will be asked to leave by the front entrance, Canal Towpath. And if you look there, there's going to be no any amplified music relative to the outside will be discernibly quieter than inside. And there's then a bit about waste collection. He does have a contract with the council with regard to his waste collection. If we look at protection of children, which is an issue, a big issue, Challenge 25 is going to be in place at the premises. And I will be speaking in a minute about the folder that Mr. Orchard is going to use to ensure that all policy and procedures are adhered to. So this application is a strong application. The police have a statutory duty to object to an application if they believe that to grant the application would create or to add some crime and disorder in the area. In addition, responsible authorities such as Environmental Health and the Kirklees Council also have a duty to make representations if they have concerns about this application. In respect of this application, no representations have been received from the police or any other responsible authority. We can surmise they have no concerns. Before I hand over to Mr. Orty, I would also like to refer you to TWD1, which is our due diligence folder that is to be installed at the premises. It is a bound folder to be retained at the premises and all staff will be trained in its use. The folder is very comprehensive. It contains initial licensing audits, DPS records, staff training, age verification policy, drugs policy, workplace violence policy, CCTV monitoring, incident reports, managing noise and monitoring forms, refusals register, and copies of personal and premises licence to be ready for inspection if needed at the premises at that time. So the only thing that I would like to now finish on before we go any further is the issue of timing. Mr. Orty's application was not an attempt to maximise the times when he could sell alcohol with no thought to local residents. He has been referred to in an email in the representations that's contained in the bundle as disingenuous and submitting sneaky plans. This is just not the case. He was genuinely shocked and dismayed at such suggestions. Mr. Orty quite simply studied the timings of other licensed premises in the area and submitted timings based on those being used in the town. When he was made aware of the concerns during this consultation process by licensing officer Jordan Barrett, Mr. Orty responded that he would be more than willing to consult and discuss the timings with those making concerns. Unfortunately, his offer was not accepted by residents, some of which insisted the premises were to be closed by 8:30 at night. As you can imagine, this was not a reasonable or viable option to Mr. Orty. Mr. Orty is still amenable to reasonable timing suggestions. For example, he will now no longer be offering alcohol for sale until 12 midday when luncheons are served. So the 8 o'clock morning time can be amended to 12 midday for the sale of alcohol. He would also consider a slightly earlier closing time, but only if the committee feels that this would be fair to the business and necessary to support the licensing objectives. What Mr. Orty asked is that the council, if they were prepared to agree his application, that it be treated on a level playing field with those existing licensed premises, and in particular those that have recently been granted. So, in finalising and handing over to Mr. Orty, Northern Soul Cafe Bistro will provide a quality service where food is the main offer. You, the committee and residents, can be rest assured that the opening of the premises will not be the floodgate to excessive noise, antisocial behaviour and drunkenness. To the contrary, the premises will improve the offer to residents and visitors wishing to enjoy a social daytime or evening get-together. You, the committee, now have the opportunity. You, the committee, have the opportunity to visit the site and surrounding areas. Hopefully, what you discovered there is in support of what I've just said. As we hope to see a light at the end of the tunnel in your area that has been particularly ravaged by COVID-19 restrictions, Northern Seoul, together with other licensed premises in Slaveway, will work together to ensure their community thrives and prospers. Thank you for allowing me the opening address. Chair, I'm just wondering whether you wish to ask me questions now, or whether you'd like to hear from Mr. Horty, and then you can ask questions together. I'm fine with either. Thank you. Hello?
Chair, you're on mute.
Sorry. Can we hear from Mr. Horty first and then ask questions?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Pinnock. Good morning, everybody. I guess there's fairly limited value in repeating the main points that Tony's well articulated there. So I guess I'll just take a couple of minutes, really, just to highlight what this idea is and what this idea isn't. So I read the objections, perfectly valid objections on the basis of the perception that I was opening a bar. I can understand why that perception might have taken place based on the original license application. I'm hoping that Tony's been able to reposition my idea, my concept, my offer very fully and very firmly in the envelope of a cafe/bistro. So what I'd like everybody to think about when they're on this call now is to position me alongside beautiful places actually to eat around Slough, like Rumpus, like Anello, like Ashby's. Next door, we've got Monsoon, of course, beautiful curry house there. And repeat, not the Commercial, the Little Bridge, the Shoulder of Mutton, which I would consider more to be pubs and bars. So I suppose that's probably worth just double underlining from my perspective, and I'm hoping that all of the evidence that I've submitted prior and through this process supports that. I guess the only other points I'd like to make are more from the heart and really just to articulate what I'm trying to do. I love Slough. I love the way that the village has started to offer such a broad, diverse and absolute quality offer, and I want to be able to contribute to that array of good eateries. That's what this is all about. The second point I'd really like to make is, I guess, a number of places where the quality is less evident sometimes is because the owners are not there. This is my place. I'm giving up and have given up my job to come and do this. I really care about what I'm trying to offer, and I will be here. It will be my name on the door, my food going out of the kitchen, and my coffee being served in the front of house. I'll be supported with members of my family as well, and I really want to embed this cafe in the centre of the community of Slough. And to that point, I guess my third point would be really, what's the vision? So the vision really is, yes, I'd like to be able to run a business. I'd like to be able to run a cafe and eatery, but I'd also like the cafe to be a contributor to the local life in Slough. And my vision really is to hold and make the space available to local community groups, for example, who wish to meet of an evening free of charge. I'm a keen jogger, keen runner, so I know running events take place up and down the canal, cycling events, etc. I'd love to be able to offer my place again, as a part of that, just to really embed myself and the cafe in the community. And then I suppose the third element I'd like to just talk about is just really the absolute support and thrill I've got from the local residents walking past. I'm here every day, well, most days anyway, painting in my overalls, doing all the DIY. This is how much I care about the place, and people are genuinely supportive, genuinely excited and encouraging towards what I'm trying to achieve. And I look forward to working with them even further to offer a broad and diverse menu that I'd like to offer. My final point, I suppose, is the really all about me. As I've already said, it's my cafe. I'm not young. I'm in my middle ages, and I have taken a significant investment in my time and in terms of my money, but also in terms of my prep. So I take the licensing objectives extremely seriously. I scored 100% in my licensing examination, for example, and I hope you consider my application to be pretty well articulated and well thought through. I believe that's naive, frankly, and there's nothing wrong with a bit of self-reflection. In my original application, I looked in the window and spoke to local license operators and got the timings from there. If that has raised some concerns, then I can only apologise. However, Tony's again well articulated my offer to be flexible throughout, and still to be flexible with the licensing objectives. And then my final point on closing is just a plea for fairness, I guess. There are some specific circumstances around what makes my building really interesting and exciting. I'd really like to be able to be treated in the same way as the premises I've just mentioned, that I've positioned myself in with, and including the most recent two license applications that have been successful, one being Rumpus, which is, I believe, got a license until midnight, and Anello, which has also got a license as well. So just to summarise, really, I'm hugely looking forward to reopening this beautiful old building on the canal. I'm hugely looking forward to offering the place to local community groups, June, including yourself, from the watershed. I know that's a charitable organisation. Perhaps there's areas that we can work together. There are plenty of community groups that may wish to avail themselves of my premises, and I'll be inviting and encouraging them to do so. So there you go. That's that. I won't go on, Councillor. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Orty. In the bundle that's been put together, I can see that there was a conversation that happened with Jordan Barrett, where you sort of indicated that you're willing to reduce the hours down. Sunday to Thursday, 9 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. and Friday to Saturday, 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. Is that still on offer? Is that the application that you're making today?
Well, the original application was till 11 o'clock, but I'm perfectly happy if that's agreed and that's on offer. I would be willing to accept those hours. Of course, yeah. I made that offer in good faith, and it's still on the table, Councillor.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions. Councillor Davies?
Yeah, I just have one for the applicant, actually, regarding the outside patio area. I understand that's to be table service for, but would that be lit? Would there be floodlighting and heating there as well? I'm just trying to gauge the potential nuisance aspect there, and if you're going to be encouraging people to sit out there. I know you mentioned earlier about the spring and summer, but the addition of heating and lighting to extend that, is that something that you're proposing?
Well, it's a really good question, Paula. So I've jet washed it, I've painted it, it's starting to look really pretty. I want to make people as comfortable as possible when they're here. So, if it's a slight nip in the air of a tea time or an early evening, then I'm happy to put some heaters out. There will not be huge spotlights, I can tell you that. but there will be some subtle lighting to be able to just improve the ambience of that area. But no, it won't be. You won't be able to see it from space.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Lyons?
Yes, there is one point out. It's a case of opening time for alcohol. I would be very comfortable with 11 a.m. to start no sooner than 11 a.m. That's the only factor that I would like to introduce. Thank you.
I'm comfortable with that, Councillor.
Yes, me too, as Mr. Ortiz representative. That's a very reasonable request.
Okay. Licensing officer, do you have any questions for the applicant?
No, I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Okay. Jean, I know you're going to speak next, but do you have any questions for the applicant at this stage?
No, I just want to make a couple of points when it's my turn.
Okay.
Sorry to be a nuisance, but I'd like to go out in 15 minutes. Will I be able to speak fairly soon? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm coming to you next, Jean. Thank you for your patience. Thank you. So there aren't any more questions for the applicant or the applicant's representative. So we'll move on to the objectors then. We have Jean who's with us, and we've got 7 other written objections, but we'll hear from you, Jean, and then I'll quickly go through the written objections.
Great, thanks very much. First of all, I'd like to say that I really appreciate what you've been doing, Carl, in terms of writing down, you know, how you've heard how you've revisited your thoughts and how you've taken on board what a lot of people have already said to you. I know that several local residents have visited you. Councillor Leslie Warner actually lives right at the bottom of Bridge Street, so she's a long way away from the premises. But I know that she's been very impressed with, you know, the way that you've wanted to relate to people and listen to them. And listening, I think, is one of the key things. I'm a trustee of the watershed, which at the moment is shut, unfortunately, because the main body of people who use it are very vulnerable. So I'm afraid this will continue into next year. But as a trustee and also a local resident, I'm aware of the issues about Bridge Street, where there are a lot more there are actually residents very close in comparison with the Little Bridge, which is the other place with the outside premises that stays open late. And we know that in summer, the Little Bridge gets very, very active, and because of its situation on the towpath, which is equivalent to Northern Seoul, it's very difficult to imagine how you sort of control that aspect, because people will go there, they'll hang about there just because it's a happy and sociable atmosphere. So I think that's something to be aware of. On the whole, I'm really impressed with what you've said and written, Carl. So I am sort of I'm saying now that I think we're not objecting in a very official capacity, and that we've got very, very good confidence that we will be able to relate to you, Carl. As you've said, we'll come and visit, we'll chat as you're there, and then that should, you know, we're hoping that will lead to really positive relationships. And I also understand from what you've said that the traffic and parking issues are not to do with licensing, but that is an issue I'm very, very knowledgeable about, so I'll talk to you about that in the future.
Look forward to it.
That's it.
Thank you so much for that, Jean. I'm assuming that no one has any questions for Jean after that. No, everyone's shaking their head. The applicant, any questions for Jean?
No, having a chat. I'll make you a coffee one day.
That sounds really positive. Okay, so just to go through the written objectors, people have contacted the council with objections to the application. They have been in relation to the location of the premises being in a residential area, and that there are numerous bars and pubs in the area. Some objected to the unreasonable trading hours of up to 11 p.m. when alcohol will be served. There's been a mention of the ale trail and the problems that might bring, lack of parking and traffic issues, which have been discussed, and the suggestion that alcohol is served until 8 p.m. So those are some of the written some of the information from written objectors which have been put forward. So moving on, there's no objections or representations made by other responsible authorities, as been alluded to. So what I will allow everyone to do now is sum up. So would the licensing officer like to sum up? Is there anything else you'd like to say?
It's just basically on what I've gone through before. Like everyone's had a chance to object this license, and only 8 public objectors and then 1 response authority, which is West Yorkshire Fire, that have actually come back with comments of no objections. And obviously it went out to councillors as well on the 28th of September, but no objections from them neither. Yeah, that's pretty much. I've already stated in my opening the majority of what I needed to say, so that's all. Thank you.
That's really useful. Thank you, Jordan. Applicant's representative, would you like to sum up briefly?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Actually, I'm going to cut it right down. Having listened to Jean's comments and everything else, I'm going to keep it very succinct. Basically, Mr. Orty has put his heart and soul into this business and is committed to working alongside the community, as you've heard, and also the police and Kirklees licensing section, just to ensure that the Northern Soul experience is a positive one. We've heard that we've had 8 representations, which everyone was concerned. I do feel the concerns really focused around this place being a bar and withstanding customers, etc. And I hope that today, and particularly Mr. Orty, has really explained what his offer is with regard to the Cafe Bar Bistro. And as I say, he has also received extensive support from the public in the area. It hasn't all been objections. We've had no objections from the police and the other responsible authorities. And you have visited the premises firsthand in the area concerned, and I hope that what we've done today is allowed you to determine that there are limited concerns and that the premises will be a positive experience. This, as I've said before, is a strong, well thought out application by Mr. Orty. In making your decision, and if you feel the application can be granted, we ask that Mr. Orty and Northern Soul is just treated on a level playing field with other licensed premises in the Slavewaite area. But you've also heard that Mr. Orty is prepared to, and he's put the offer on the table of the revised licensing hours. I thank you for your time today. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we've heard all this information, the panel need an opportunity to consider and make a decision. What we will do is we will consider, make the decision, and the decision will be delivered on the webcast. And what we will also do is make sure the applicant has details of the decision in writing as well. So thank you everyone for attending today. And we will be delivering the decision shortly.
to you, Chair.
Thank you. Good morning. This morning, the panel dealt with an application for grant of premises licence in relation to Northern Soul, 39 Bridge Street, Slathwaite, Huddersfield. We heard information from everyone present at the panel in relation to the application, and we felt it was refreshing to see such a well thought out application. And we were grateful for the opportunity to do a site visit, so we were able to see the premises, where it was located, and to be able to put the application in context. So it was a good opportunity to see everything in terms of the review. And also we're very mindful and grateful that the applicant has listened to what residents has had to say about this application. We have accepted the offer made by the applicant in the following terms, and have made the following decision in terms of the alcohol licence, that between Sunday to Thursday, 11 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. and Friday to Saturday between 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. And what we will do, we will confirm that in writing and send that to the applicant. So that's the end of that particular application. I think we're due to take a break, aren't we? Good morning, everyone. We'll start by a round of introductions. My name's Amanda Pinnock. I'm chair of the panel. Councillor Davies.
Hi, I'm Councillor Paola Davis from Almery Ward. I am a member of the panel today.
Councillor Lyons.
Councillor Terry Lyons, councillor for Home Valley North.
Council's legal representative. You're on mute, Helen.
Apologies, Chair. My name's Helen Wilson. I'm a solicitor. I'll be advising the panel today.
Thank you. Licensing officers.
Morning, I'm Phil Asquith, Licensing Officer for Kirklees Council.
Good morning, everyone. Laura Dobson, Senior Licensing Officer. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Beth Jennings, also Senior Licensing Officer.
Morning, panel. It's Russell Williams, Operational Manager for Kirklees Council.
Okay, the applicant, Mr. Abdullah.
Yes.
Thank you. And the applicant's representative.
Hi, good morning, Councillor Pinnock. How are you?
Fine, thank you. And we have
it's Nick Semper from the licensing guys here.
Thank you, Mr. Semper. And we have some objectors. Councillor Scott.
Yes, good morning, Chair. Councillor Cathy Scott, Dewsbury East Ward.
Thank you. Councillor Lukic.
Thank you. Councillor Alex Lukic, Dewsbury East Ward.
Thank you. And I think we have two members of Safer Kirklees with us.
Hi, yeah, Joanne Todd, Safer Kirklees Team Manager for Dewsbury.
And Community Safety Officer for the North.
Thank you. So just to confirm, this meeting is being webcast. It's been recorded. We'll jump straight into the application. So the application is for the grant of a premises licence in respect of Unit 1C, the galleries, situated on Bradford Road, Dewsbury. Can we start by the licensing officer outlining the application, please?
Thank you, Chair. On the 21st of October 2020, the Licensing Department received an application for the grant of a premises licence at Unit 1C, the galleries, Bradford Road, Dewsbury. The application was made on behalf of the company by the licensing guys. A copy of this application can be seen at Appendix A. The licensable activities applied for by the application are as follows. The supply of alcohol for consumption off the premises 7 days a week from 8 AM to 11 PM. The application was circulated to the 8 relevant authorities, which are Kirklees Safeguarding, Environmental Health, West Yorkshire Fire Service, Immigration, Kirklees Primary Care Trust, Kirklees Planning, West Yorkshire Police, Weights and Measures. In total, 3 representations have been received relating to this application. The representations consider that the following licensing objectives would not be met should this licence be granted: the prevention of public nuisance, the prevention of crime and disorder, and the protection of children from harm. A copy of these representations can be seen at Appendix B. Kirklees Licensing have also received a request for a condition to be applied to the licence should the licence be granted. This can be viewed at Appendix C. The applicant's representative from the company licensing guys has also submitted further documents which can be seen at Appendix D. And that's it from my point of view.
Thank you. Do any of my colleagues have any questions for the licensing officer? Councillor Davies?
No.
Councillor Lyons?
None.
Thank you. So we'll move on. So can we now hear from the applicant's representative, please, Mr. Semper?
Yes, ma'am. It pains me to raise this matter to begin with, but I feel that it's imperative on me to do so. This is one primarily for your legal advisor, Mr. Wilson. Please, Chair. Like I say, the situation is difficult. I have to raise it in order to protect my client's position if things progress to a higher authority. Now, initially, a police constable raised a representation, but this was subsequently withdrawn as the officer does not have the required lawful authority to represent the Chief Constable of West Yorkshire Police in licensing matters, and her evidence was at variance with that of those who are trained, authorised and charged with that duty. So incidentally, I'd also take issue with its content, were it to be laid before you, but that's another matter. But subsequently, a Kirklees licensing officer contacted another representative to invite that party to make a further submission to strengthen their representation, which the licensing officer perceived to be weakened by the withdrawal of the constable's submission. This was indeed provided by a lengthy email on the 3rd of December with a request that a further party be invited to address you in support of this objection. Now, a couple of things here spring to my mind. Firstly, the licensing authority officer is supposed to be impartial in this matter and has stepped outside that role in order to elicit and adduce further evidence of support of one side of the matter before you. And this constitutes bias, quite frankly, even if advertent. And secondly, the consultation period ended back in mid-November, but the parties prompted by the licensing officer are seeking to elicit and adduce further reps in early December. Now, this is clearly outside the statutory framework and in my submission is unlawful. Now, this isn't an ambush, Councillor Pinnock, ma'am. I did try to raise the issue with the head of licensing at Kirklees Council when it occurred, but that person was unavailable last week. Consequently, I was advised by email to raise it at the committee meeting this morning instead, which was not my wish at all. So I wonder whether we can refer these concerns, to your legal advisor so that they are at least noted and on the record. Would that be okay, ma'am?
Yes. Helen, are you able to comment?
Yes, Chair. I've listened to what Mr. Semper said, and I'm not sure that I can agree with his assumption that it was that licensing spoke to Ms. Todd in order to strengthen or weakness her objection. As I read the objection, I'm looking at page 85 of the bundle. It says, "Thanks, Louise. We agree with your observations in terms of the town centre." I will have to speak to licensing. I note that we do have Mr. Williams on the in this meeting, and perhaps he could confirm. But it seems to me that what licensing were doing were wanting to clarify what was meant by that in no more simple terms than an applicant, a representative is entitled to do when they make their presentation either orally or in writing to a committee. And if you accept that, Chair, then you can't agree then that this is a consultation extension exercise, that further representations are being received. It's a slight oddity in that the representation that Ms. Todd refers to is no longer in the bundle, but in short, you'd need to see what Ms. Todd says about it. Now, that seems to be my thoughts on the matter. The legal position, I would have to agree with Mr. Semper. It is the case that you cannot receive a representation that you can consider. It would be irrelevant. It would should never make it to your door. But if it does, it would be just as irrelevant as any other irrelevancies that you deal with in many of the statements made by those who object. So I do agree that you can't add or extend the consultation process, but I'm in some difficulty in agreeing that this must have been a deliberate attempt to strengthen or weakness the case. But as I say, licensing is here. Perhaps you'd hear from them confirmation of exactly what they spoke to Ms. Todd about and what they expected from her. That might clarify. Mr. Semper, does that clarify the position?
Well, yes, ma'am. Yes, it does. I have to raise it because I was served, I think, on the 3rd of December, an email, but it's not the beginning of the email trail. It starts, "Hi, Philip, here is the additional information." Well, clearly additional information had been requested. Yeah, and we've got some significant nervousness about that. And as long as we put it on record, ma'am, if it progresses further, then that's something for greater minds than ours to address, isn't it?
Well, then that's exactly what I thought, that Chair, that perhaps if we asked licensing what exactly they were doing, and perhaps Ms. Todd could when we come to her, could confirm that she wasn't, what she was and wasn't asked. I wasn't on the call. Chair, that seems a way to move forward from this.
Thank you. I think that would be useful. Can we hear from the licensing?
Just a question.
Yes, Mr. Semper.
Well, I was just the important thing will be what the email was that preceded that elicited the email on the 3rd of December to the licensing department, ma'am. If we could have sight to that at some stage, not necessarily now, but that would probably address the matter.
I don't think it was an email, Chair. I think it was a telephone conversation, but
I think we need to hear from licensing. Yes. They were there at the time and will have recorded whatever took place. So is it possible to hear from one of the licensing officers, please, about this?
Chair, I suppose it's most... Sorry, Phil, go on. You.
No, all I was going to say was that the original email from Joanne Todd basically said it was just a few lines, and he said, we agree with your observations in terms of the town centre. The reason that I spoke to Joanne Todd after the police officer received her representation was to get clarification on what she agreed with the observation in the town centre. That's why I contacted Joanne Todd, just to see what her thoughts were on that.
Okay. Russell, did you want to come in as well?
Yeah, no, well, Phil's pretty much said what I was going to say, but I would just add, Chair, that the Licensing Act hearing regulations do allow the local authority to seek clarification from those making representations as to particular points, and that's all we were seeking to do. As for who attends the hearing, the antisocial behaviour officers that are part of one team, they are entitled to attend. A person is entitled to ask somebody to attend on their behalf and give representations as well. So I see no issue with two officers from the same team covering the same area, as long as they, you know, the information they give expands on their representations and doesn't introduce new ones. I see no issue with that.
Thank you for the clarity there. Mr. Semper?
Okay, ma'am, I'm ready to proceed.
Thank you.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Very clearly, yes.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Good morning. Before you use the application itself, we've also provided printouts for the last 6 months of crime and antisocial behaviour data from the Home Office Crime Mapper site, which shows that there is a low level of both crime and antisocial behaviour around the premises site. Okay. Lastly, we've provided graphs that show you that Kirklees is the safest by far of all the divisions in West Yorkshire Police, and that crime is actually dropping. So well done to you all in Kirklees. Consequently, I will let those documents and statistical returns speak for themselves, as they are the definitive record. So, I'm grateful for sight of the 3 or 4 representations. In their opinion, there is a problem with this application. For reasons of time and clarity, I will deal with them largely together, as essentially the representatives dismissed the application out of hand with no offer of compromise or suggestion of modification. I do understand their position and will explain why now I beg to differ. Now, as members of the licensing subcommittee, you will all be acutely aware that objections can only be made on the grounds that this application does not promote the 4 licensing objectives. The first point is this: the responsible authorities have a statutory responsibility to promote the licensing objectives. For example, the police are the lead agency for the prevention of crime objective and have all the facts, figures and experience needed to come here and argue vehemently against this or indeed any application if it does not support the licensing objectives. But they are not here. I suggest there's a very good reason for that, as this was all agreed prior to the submission being made, the application being submitted in the first place. And you'll see that liaison took place beforehand when you turn to section M of the application in paragraph A, where it clearly states that that liaison has, in fact, I'll tell you exactly what it says. It says, we have liaised with the West Yorkshire Police, most especially the police licensing officers for Huddersfield, whose advice and guidance has informed this application. Now, I submit that the police have not objected because this application does indeed support the licensing objectives, and there is no good and valid reason to object to it in law or fact. Likewise, no other responsible authorities objected, and if there was anything to object to, then they are statutorily and duty-bound to be here and object to it. And I believe, therefore, that you can read a very great deal into their absence here today. So we're left with the representations, which is a euphemism for objections, covering 4 or 5 issues, namely, 1, no need for another licensed premises, 2, crime and ASB, including street drinking, 3, proximity to a college, 4, proximity to a snooker club, and 5, the innate type and character that this business is of itself. So I'll deal with each in turn if you will allow me. The argument of no need for another is specifically outside the remit of the licensing legislation. Para 14.19, and again you'll be guided by Mrs. Wilson on this, but Para 14.19 of the statutory guidance states that need concerns the commercial demand for another and is a matter for the planning authority in the market. This is not a matter for a licensing authority to decide in discharging its licensing functions or for its statement of licensing policy. Therefore, the no need for another, the economic argument, is irrelevant in law. So next, we've got the crime and antisocial behaviour argument. I'll now address you on the localised crime patterns. As I've already proved, Kirklees enjoys low crime rates compared with its neighbouring policing areas, and indeed, it is falling. You'll find in your bundle that I have produced printouts of the official stats from the Home Office UK Crime Mapper site, and it is based on data produced by the West Yorkshire Police in very Sounds. Luckily, the mapper system gazetteers the locations very near to the premises, and you can see the number and types of crimes and ASB broken down for each of the past 6 months. The figures are remarkably low for this location. In those 6 months, there have been 8 violent or sexual offences. That works out at 1.3 per calendar month. There have been 5 public order offences. That works out at 0.8 per calendar month. There have been 2 robberies. That's 1 every 3 months. There have been 2 damage offences. Again, 1 every 3 months. There's been 1 burglary and 1 car crime, both each 1 every 6 months. And there has only been 1 ASB incident recorded at this location. That's 1 every 6 months. So taken together, all incidents lumped together, it rumbles on at about 3.3 incidents per calendar month at this locality. Now, this is a remarkably low crime area statistic for a similar location, in all fairness. This is not a matter of my opinion as a former local policing lead for another city in the Midlands, but it is simply a matter of counting the numbers in front of you. Mass don't care about feelings or speculative opinions. They are facts, and the facts are that this is a comparatively low crime area. Now, the next one that I've got to address you on is street drinking, because there are references to people who buy a drink and sit or stand about outside, and young people might just pass by. Well, we have repeated mentions in the reps of the PSPO, the Public Spaces Protection Order, banning street drinking. Well, very quickly on street drinking, the Police and Crime Act of 2017 and the House of Commons briefing paper 5117, which are provided, reminds us that drinking in a street or in a public place is not an offence. I've submitted a copy of the PSPO itself that confirms that. It's not even an offence to drink in a controlled alcohol area. It is only an offence to refuse a request to cease drinking or surrender alcohol to an authorised person. We all know what the representatives meant, but believe we would all benefit from clarity as to what the actual UK law is. Street drinking is not a crime and therefore sits outside the crime and disorder licensing objective. Please let me tell you what the real situation is based upon my liaison with the Police Licensing Office for Kirklees. There are about 5 of these independent operators in the town centre of Dewsbury and 3 large operators, your Lidl's, Sainsbury's and Asda's. There is a cadre of about a dozen known street drinkers in the town centre. It's unsightly, but it's not a crime. The police have engaged with all these independent and large operators about serving these dozen or so street drinkers, and all the operators, both independent and large corporates, are, inverted commas, on side. What will fix this problem in Dewsbury is a watch system, such as a secure mobile disk system, that's a digital internet for the safer communities. Persons who act antisocially are entered onto a watch list and thereafter refuse service from the member retailers. It's simple. I've implemented systems like this in my previous roles in the past, and trust me, they work, and they work very well. So on the next issue is proximity to a college. There is no evidence before you of students buying alcohol on the way to college or popping out and getting drunk during break time. Are we to believe that this is really a problem or will become a problem? Seriously? There is a little very nearby. And even if there was a problem, which I doubt there is, refusing this licence would not address the problem when you have a little so nearby. There's mention of proximity to a snooker club. My client has nothing to do with that club, and there is no evidence of a causal link or of joint enterprise before you linking them, the applicant, to the snooker club. So with the greatest respect, that representation is simply irrelevant in law. So, how likely is a real and tangible rise in crime and antisocial behaviour? How likely would it be were you to grant this licence? I submit that these premises, operating under and committed to a set of licensing conditions like the ones you see before you, which are acceptable to the police themselves, would not undermine the licensing objectives or your local licensing policy. The statutory guidance is also clear on the liability of operators when it comes to bad behaviour perpetrated by others some distance from their premises. I've got another quote here for your legal advisor. I must point you to para 2.21 of the statutory guidance. Word for word again, I'll quote it. And this is what it says. Beyond the immediate area surrounding the premises, these are matters for the personal responsibility of individuals under the law. An individual who engages in antisocial behaviour is accountable in their own right. Now, I'd extend that to crime as well, but by the by. I am therefore not convinced that antisocial behaviour perpetrated at a distance up the road from these premises, which to date have sold zero alcoholic products anyway, can be attributed to these premises, either in fact, law, or with the benefit of a crystal ball as to what may or may not happen at some undisclosed time in the future. And how can any of these pre-existing problems, were they to be a problem, which is not supported in the stats I've served on you, how can any of this can it be the applicant's fault? So please tell me what the real situation is. Sorry, I've already covered that. So, in conclusion, today's hearing is an evidence-based process in a quasi-judicial setting. There is no evidence before you of disproportionate crime or ASB issues. In fact, quite the opposite. We're all bound by clear legislation and statutory guidance that precludes you precludes you from considering any extraneous issues that might be raised. We're offering a raft of conditions on this premises licence that will indeed promote the licensing objectives, and indeed the police are satisfied with them. Okay, just to give you a quick, snapshot of where we're up to. We will not be selling single cans of beers, lager or cider with an ABV in excess of 6.5%, which is the very product that street drinkers crave. And when they purchase these products, they purchase them one at a time. Okay, we will simply not be supporting either those products or that method of buying those drinks. There's going to be CCTV in the premises covering both sides of the sale transaction. Okay, showing who is selling what to whom. This should reassure you of our intention, our stated intention. We have no ambition to sell drink to street drunks or children. Now, there's been some talk about litter. Well, we've already offered at Condition 8 litter checks, but if you want us to fit a litter bin outside the premises, that's not a problem. Lastly, well, clearly we've got Challenge 25 in place, but we're also offering to have our staff trained in responsible alcohol retailing upon induction and thereafter on an annual basis. So there we have it, ma'am. We have a very comprehensive raft of conditions attached to this modest application, which the police support. And frankly, I'm struggling to find real evidence of actual problems as required by Her Honour Mrs. Justice Black in the Thwaites case to gainsay any of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Semper. I have a few questions. Could you tell me about the business? Is it open at the moment?
No, it is not, ma'am.
Okay. You haven't provided any information about the applicant himself, about his experience of running licensed premises, for example? Are you able to give any information?
Well, Mr. Akko Kadir Abdullah wishes to open a small convenience store with off license, clearly. He is not trained, he has not passed his award for personal license holder, and therefore does not hold a personal license. Therefore, you will see on the application that I myself have offered to stand as DPS until a person has been appointed in that role. Here we go. That shop will not sell alcohol with me as a DPS. I simply forbid it because I cannot service that shop at this distance. Okay, we have got somebody in mind to be the DPS who will be floated in if and when this application is successful, and they will hold a personal license and can fulfill that role. But for the purposes of the application for a premises license, the purpose is to get the premises license prior to the shop opening, and then to appoint a DPS who can fulfill that role in its entirety, to your complete satisfaction, ma'am.
Thank you. I don't have any more questions. Councillor Davies, any questions?
No, not for me.
Councillor Lyons?
Not at this juncture, no.
Okay, licensing officer, any questions or officers?
No, I've got no questions. No.
Okay, I'm going to move to the objectors. I know we're going to hear from you shortly. I'll go through each of you. Councillor Scott, any questions for the applicant's representative at this stage?
No, none, Chair.
Councillor Lukic?
No, thank you.
Joanne Todd?
No.
No? And James Denton?
No.
No, okay. All right then. So we'll move on to the objectors.
Chair, just before you do you want me to clarify? Mr. Semper referenced 2 legal points that he thought that would need clarification from your legal advisor. Do you need me just to clarify that position before you move on to the objectors?
I think that'd be useful for clarity. Thank you.
Chair, he referenced 2 matters. Firstly, the need. This is a familiar concept to panel members. He gave you the reference of paragraph 14.21 in the 182 guidance. That's the correct reference, and indeed it does say that need for another premises is outside of the remit of the licensing committee. This panel cannot consider whether or not there are cannot consider the number of premises selling alcohol within this area. The second issue he referred to was part of the guidance. You have got an excerpt, but it doesn't go on to paragraph 2.21. So for clarity, it does say, again, this is a familiar concept to the panel, that antisocial behaviour, other issues that happen outside of the premises area cannot be linked to the premises unless you've got direct evidence of that. Chair, you asked the question if the premises are open. The answer was no, and therefore any of the issues that you may or may not be told about today cannot be linked to a premises that is not open, Chair. He did reference in relation to that the case of Thwaites. Thwaites says effectively the same issues, that you can't link other evidence about matters that may or may not impact on the full licensing objectives to a premises when there's no supposition of the same. Effectively, you've got to have evidence that the issues emanate from the premises, and if they're not open, Chair, it can't be from those premises. And the only final issue I think we just need to clarify is when you move on to Ms. Todd, is that to ask her about whether or not she was indeed asked for additional evidence, as was Mr. Semper had alluded to, or indeed she was just explaining, clarifying, which is what Mr. Asquith said, clarifying what her original application was for. As we've already established, representations outside of the consultation area cannot be considered. Chair, you might perhaps want to address yourself to that when speaking to Mrs. Todd. Is that
I'm grateful, thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to the objectors then. So the first one we have is Councillor Scott.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's with a heavy heart I'm here today because I do want it noted on record. I do support local businesses and I do want Dewsbury to flourish. But however, in this case, as the Dewsbury East Ward Councillor, this application does fall within my ward, and I have raised an objection because of the premises being next to the newly built colleges. I've listened to what's been said, but for me, there's still safeguarding issues near this because there'll be young and vulnerable adults using the college site. We have granted, street drinkers will congregate outside there, as there's benches and in the whole area around there, there's facilities for them to sit. We already have a host of premises within the town centre and its ring road that sell alcohol. Dewsbury Town Centre is a designated no street drinking. However, this has not stopped street drinkers gathering throughout the day, late into the evening, which has had an impact on our town centre, which causes crime and is actually a lot of antisocial behaviour, and in recent as last year, a lot of criminal damage, and this was by adults and young people. The antisocial behaviour is a problem. The general public complain that their fear of use of the town centre when having to walk past the street drinkers, they find it very, very intimidating. So, Chair, it's with a heavy heart. I do support local businesses. I just feel that this one is where the premises are isn't the right place.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. Councillor Lukic.
Thank you, Chair. Members, first of all, I just want to note in your report, you've got two emails from me, one which says no objections and one with an objection. I just want to clarify that there was some confusion over the location of the premises because there is another premises called the Galleries, which is on Wakefield Road outside the Ring Road. So that was when I was saying no objection. And then when it became clear it was within the town centre, that's when I raised the objection. There is a persistent public nuisance in the town centre that's repeatedly reported to ward councillors, and that I've personally observed myself on several occasions and raised several times at the Dewsbury Town Centre working group. People feel unsafe at night, particularly at night, but at other times of day as well in the town centre. And one of the main factors that the public brings to the council's attention is groups drinking on the streets. And I've noted this application includes late night sales up to 11 p.m. So we do have the PSPO against street drinking. And as the applicant's representative said, the street drinking itself may not be an offence, but that doesn't mean it isn't a public nuisance. It very much is a public nuisance. Of course, the offences may be committed when there is not compliance with the PSPO, with the terms of the PSPO. So when the police do notice someone with an open container of alcohol, for example, if that is surrendered, then it may not show up in the crime data. The recent crime data may have reduced due to the lockdowns we've been having and premises closures involved in that. And we do also have to look at crime data across the town centre, not just in this particular area of it. The council, as mentioned, the council recently formed the Safer Dewsbury Town Centre Working Group, and 2 police constables were recently recruited, which is further recognition of the nuisance being caused by non-compliance with the PSPO against street drinking. But these PCs only operate during the daytime on weekdays. So there is work going on, but we're trying to widen that within the working group for weekends and evenings. So the main thing is, I don't think we should do anything to undermine the progress the Safer Town Centre Working Group is starting to make on this nuisance. And in the town centre, promoting compliance with the PSPO and deterring street drinking is absolutely necessary to prevent this public nuisance. And I've just not seen enough in this application that would promote this compliance. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll move on to Joanne Todd.
Good morning. I've really not much to add to my original submission, only that I'm based in Dewsbury Town Centre. That's where I work when we're not on lockdown anyway. And the street drinkers, do cause a public nuisance. They sit in the town centre. They do generally pour their drinks away if they're asked to by town centre police officers, but the police officers can't police that specific area of seating 24 hours a day. Our frontline officers, called community and environmental support officers, witness street drinkers every day of the week when they're patrolling the town centre. And really it's just for that reason, given the aspirations of the Dewsbury Blueprint and the work that we're trying to do to make Dewsbury feel and look safer, to encourage businesses and shoppers and customers to come into the town centre, that we were objecting primarily just to the alcohol licence part.
Okay, thank you. James Stenson, anything else to add?
Not from me, no.
Lovely. Okay, so we'll move on to questions. So, Joanne, there is a specific question that I need to ask you, which was raised a number of times today. So the question is whether you asked for additional evidence by the licensing officer, or whether you were asked for clarity about what the original objections were.
I can read you out the email I received from Philip Asquith on the 1st of December at about approximately 9:45. Good morning, Joanne. I'm emailing you regarding the upcoming licensing hearing, which will take place on Monday the 7th of December. I'm not sure if you're aware, but PC Peach has withdrawn her official objection to the licensing of the premises at Unit 1C, the galleries. As your objection relies quite heavily on PC Peach's objection, would you like to add more information to your objection? Can I also ask if you will be attending the hearing on Monday? So following that email, that's when I submitted additional information.
Can I move to the legal representative? Helen?
Yes, Chair.
I just wanted to clarify with you the response that was given by Joanne Todd. She indicated that she was asked for additional information. So I think that really changes the landscape.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's exactly what Mr. Asquith said when you asked him the question, and it is exactly the issue that Mr. Semper has raised, that additional information as opposed to clarifying the initial objections. But maybe I'm just conscious that I'm sure licensing wants to be, and indeed I've just seen Mr. Williams has raised his hand, Chair. So what I can say is that additional information may well be an issue.
Thank you. Russell?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, based on what Ms. Dawes just said, I would suggest that you move into private session and discuss with Ms. Wilson in further detail, and then come back with the decision on whether you accept that information or not.
I agree.
Or allow that information or not.
I agree. I think that's the best way to proceed. Is that right, Helen? Should we do that?
Yes, that's absolutely fine, Chair.
So that's what we're going to do, everyone. We're going to go into a private session and have a discussion about this as to what we're going to do now that we've heard this information that's clarified the position. So Jenny, do we leave the meeting?
Yes, we leave and Chair.
Thank you for everyone's patience. So we needed an opportunity to consider the information that was given by Joanne Todd in terms of clarification. And in light of the email and the response given by Joanne Todd indicating that she was asked for additional information, the panel has decided to disregard the email response. And what we've decided to do is we will apply the appropriate weight to the oral evidence that Joanne has given today. Okay. So now that I've asked my question, I'll ask my colleagues if they have any questions. So Councillor Davies, any questions of the objectors?
None at the moment.
Councillor Lyons?
No, thank you.
Okay. The applicant's representative?
Yeah, just one question, ma'am. Is there a cumulative impact policy in place at this location? I don't believe there is. If somebody could confirm that, please.
No, I can confirm, Chair, that there's no CI cumulative impact policy in place at that location.
Bless you, thank you. In that case, ma'am, I will reserve my observations on what you've been told to the summing up, please.
Okay, thank you. So moving on. Can I ask each of the parties to sum up? So starting with the licensing officer. Is there anything additional you'd like to say or to sum up?
Thank you, Chair. Just as the application was circulated to the 8 relevant authorities, we did get back a no objection both from West Yorkshire Fire Service and West Yorkshire Police Licensing. Other than that, I've got nothing more to add, Chair.
Okay, Mr. Semper.
Right, ma'am. I'm just going to take all those representations in the round, please. Okay, so the first one, and without allocating them to individual representatives, I think that'd be unhelpful. Right, the newly built colleges. Okay, there's no evidence of any safeguarding issue before you that has been referred to. Secondly, the representative's position is that were you to grant this application, then the situation will become worse. I again say that. Selling alcohol responsibly will not cause a new localised spike in alcoholism or conjure up many more so far unidentified antisocial or criminally motivated street drinkers who will suddenly flood into the area. Why would they come and flood the area? The representatives have no evidence that this will happen. It is merely their opinion based on speculation. And you will, of course, be mindful that you've already been reminded by your legal advisor that speculation is excluded from your considerations by the dictum of the famous Thwaites case. Okay, secondly, it's not in the right place. This premises, we support local businesses in Dewsbury, but this one's simply in the wrong place. Okay, it doesn't enhance the town centre. Well, firstly, that's a planning matter regarding business use. Secondly, in law, proscription of particular types of licensed premises can only be achieved through the imposition of a cumulative impact policy. Now, you know all about those, as you've already got one in Huddersfield, but not at Dewsbury. Thirdly, I can find no reference to preference or partiality in your statement of licensing policy, which looks favourably on one kind of operation at one location and unfavourably on another at the same. And fourthly, as I've already explained, this is an evidence-based process in a quasi-judicial setting, and there is simply no evidence that this reopened shop will detract from the area. It is simply a matter of opinion of one of your representatives. Now, one of the councillors agreed that the PSBO does not ban street drinking, and street drinking is not an offence. However, in their opinion, it is a public nuisance. So very helpfully, I can point your legal advisor to para 2.15 of the statutory guidance, where it defines public nuisance. And public nuisance, the end sentence of that paragraph is particularly useful. These issues will mainly concern noise nuisance, light pollution, noxious smells, and litter. Okay, so the one that sort of leaps out at me there is litter, and we've already addressed it twice, in as much that we're offering to do regularised litter checks, and furthermore, we intend to put a litter bin in place if that is your wish, ma'am. Right, the next one is that these figures are not recent enough. Well, they are the most recent available, and they run from April to September of this year. Okay. the issue of people misbehaving elsewhere in the town centre. Well, I've got the crime data for this area. What other things happen in the town centre? I again refer you back to para 2.21, which says that people who behave antisocially are accountable in their own right. And your legal advisor correctly stated the law in as much that if you cannot link that behaviour to a particular premises, then it is not the premises' fault. Okay. And lastly, I remind you again, the ASB for this area is there's only been one incident reported in the entire 6 months. That works out one ASB incident per it doesn't. It's every 6 months. So that works out at 0.2 incidents per calendar month. Lastly, been some mention of street drinking. I only mention this as an aside because I've seen this problem elsewhere, particularly in an area that I was the geographic commander for in an earlier life. If people are congregating and misbehaving at street furniture, i.e. public seating, what we did in Commercial Street in Hereford, for example, is to remove the public seating, and that solves the problem completely. Okay, that's my last aside. Okay, so I must remind you that you've not heard in this room or in these papers one piece of evidence that speaks against this particular applicant or these premises. I reiterate, we have no intention to sell alcohol to children or street drunks, and before you is a raft of conditions designed and agreed with the police to prevent those same things happening. There is no evidence to suggest that it is our intention. It is pure supposition that we will sell to children and street drunks. We have demonstrated that because we won't stock the alcohol products that street drinkers drink. And we won't sell in single cans, which is how street drinkers buy those products. We will have CCTV in and around our shop covering both sides of the point of sale to reassure you that we don't sell alcohol or anything age-related to kids or drunks. We will employ Challenge 25. We will train our staff in a recognised qualification in responsible alcohol retailing. And we will even conduct those regularised litter picks should you so require them, ma'am. And that, I think, rests my case.
Thank you, Mr. Semper. Councillor Scott, would you like to sum up?
Yeah, yes, Chair. Whichever way you decide, should you grant in favour of this application, as long as the measures are in place, I'm happy, to go whatever the licensing committee decides.
Thank you. Councillor Lukic.
Thank you, Chair. I would say the same. I think the licensing committee's heard everything we have to say, and obviously I respect your decision.
Thank you. Joanne Todd.
Yeah, I have nothing further to add, thank you.
And James Denton.
James has been called to a further meeting, but there's nothing to add.
Thank you. Right then, so we've had an opportunity to hear all the evidence here today. We now need an opportunity to consider and deliberate and arrive at our decision. And the decision will be webcast once we've made it, and a letter will be sent to the applicant confirming the decision that's been made. So thank you everyone for attending, and enjoy the rest of your day.
To you, Chair.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for your patience. So we, as a panel, were considering an application for grant of licensed premises of Unit 1C, the galleries, situated at Bradford Road, Dewsbury. And we've had an opportunity to listen to all the information and the evidence.
And just to confirm, we've listened carefully and closely to the information that's been given. And we've given we understand the concerns raised by the councillors and Safer Kirklees, particularly in relation to the safeguarding issues and the ongoing antisocial behaviour in the area. However, we have taken into account the stringent conditions put forward by the applicant in the application. And we have taken the decision to grant the application, but with an extension to conditions which have been put forward. And the condition that we're particularly interested in is paragraph D, which is in relation to the prevention of public nuisance. Paragraph D7, where it states that staff shall monitor the exterior of the premises using CCTV and personal observations and use their best endeavours to disperse persons congregating outside. But what we would also like to be included is the following: and where necessary, report to the appropriate authorities. Thank you everyone for attending and enjoy the rest of your day. The decision will be sent out to the applicant in writing. Thank you.